spies on the road to Damascus. All right, and some of you already know the story, so it should be easy. And I took the book and we made it into a slide presentation so you could actually see the pictures as we go. All right, so Saul, he did not like the followers of Jesus. In fact, he was a bad man. He was a very bad man. He hated Christians. He did everything he could to make them stop telling people about Jesus, who was God's son. Saul arrested Christians, he threw them in prison, and sometimes even he had them killed. But the church kept growing and growing. And so one day, Saul went to the high priest and got permission to arrest any Christians he could find in the city of Damascus. So what was the name of the guy in our story so far? Saul. And was he a good guy, Luke? No. He was a what kind of guy, crew? He's a bad guy. What did he do to people who were Christians? He killed them, and he persecuted them, and he probably had them tortured, and he did terrible things to them. So we're turning the page now. So Saul and his helpers set off for Damascus. So who wants to be Saul in my story? Crew? Okay, come on. You're Saul. You're the bad man. That's all right. He's only a bad man for a little bit. And Saul is headed on his way to Damascus. So Saul stand right here. And then we need his followers, people who were with him. We need about 3. Okay, Luke, come on and stand by him. Who else is coming to be one of his followers? Okay, Jane. Who else? Poor Corin. He gets picked for everything. Okay, do we have to take Corin? Pick somebody else. Pick somebody else besides your brother. Who? Christian. It's kind of hard. There aren't that many kids here, okay? So Saul and his followers were on the way to Damascus. And he was a mean guy. And he was going to try to kill everybody who were Christians, okay? So Saul, I want you be walking and go this way and go around and then come up the middle aisle, okay? And all of you followers follow him. So Saul and his helpers, they set off for Damascus. Just before they reached the city, wait till they come all the way around the middle aisle here. Just before they reached the city, a blinding light. Whoops, he lost his flip-flop. His sandal. He lost his sandal. He has to get it. Saul has to get his sandal. Come on, Saul, up here. He saw a blinding light that flashed from heaven, and Saul fell to the ground. Fall to the ground, Saul. He fell to the ground. He heard the voice, and you guys fell too because you heard the voice too. You saw the blinding light. Oh, don't fall too hard. Saul heard the voice of Jesus say, "Saul, Saul, why do you keep hurting me?" Then Jesus' voice told Saul to go to Damascus and wait to be told what to do. When Saul got up to obey, get up, Saul, he couldn't see anything because he was blind. He was blind, everybody. He was blind. So Saul's friends led him to Damascus, where he waited and prayed for 3 days. So lead him, everybody help him. Let's say Damascus is over here. And they led him to Damascus, where he waited and prayed for 3 days. So let's see Saul praying for 3 days. He's praying for 3 days. Okay, pray. He's praying for 3 days. Everybody, day 1, day 2, day 3. All right, God spoke to a church leader named Ananias. Who's going to be Ananias? No, you can't be Ananias. You're already doing something. Who wants to be Ananias? Harper? Come on, be Ananias. You're a guy. Okay, you're a guy. So stand right there. So God spoke to a church leader named Ananias and told him to heal Saul of his blindness. But Ananias was afraid. Show us how you're afraid to meet Saul. He knew that Saul was in Damascus to arrest Jesus' followers. But God assured Ananias Saul would spread the good news about Jesus to kings and people of many nations. So Ananias obeyed God and went to the house. Went to the house where Saul was staying. Go on, Ananias. All right, helpers, you can go sit down for a minute. Leave Saul there. You're blind, Saul. You can't see anything, remember? That's how a blind person stands, okay? So go on, Ananias. So Ananias obeyed God and went to the house where Saul was staying. Ananias put his hands on Saul and said, "Brother Saul, Jesus sent me here to help you see again. Immediately, scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he could see again. Then Saul got up, and he was baptized. So are you happy you can see, Saul? Show us how you're happy. Okay. He already got it. Saul got up, and he was baptized. He wanted to show everyone that he believed in Jesus. So let's see what happens next. We're turning the page. Instead of arresting the Christians, okay, you're good. Saul, come back over here. Stand here so everybody can look at you, Saul. Are you happy? You can see? All right, turn around and look at them. Instead of arresting the Christians in Damascus, Saul became friends with them. So some of you Christians come up here, Some of you Christians come up here and be friends with Luke. Come over here too. Be friends with Saul. Come on, Saul, be nice to them. Instead of arresting the Christians in Damascus, Saul became friends with them. Pat him on the back. In fact, he began preaching in the synagogue, telling everyone that Jesus was the Son of God. He was such a good teacher that no one could argue with him. Everyone who heard Saul was amazed. Is he this really the same man who people came to arrest, Jesus' followers? People asked. So, okay, you guys can sit down now. Saul, you too. You're a little, did you have candy or yet for the day? Oh, okay, just check it. But not everyone was happy. We got it. Not everyone was happy about the change in Saul. Saul's old friends who didn't believe in Jesus decided to kill Saul because he wasn't on their side anymore. But Saul heard of their plans. Then Saul's friends in the church came up with a plan of their own. In the dark of night, they lowered Saul in a large basket through an opening in the city wall. Because of their help, Saul escaped. Then Saul got back to Jerusalem. When Saul got back to Jerusalem, the Christians there were afraid of him. How could they trust the man who used to be their enemy? Only Barnabas believed Saul. Barnabas helped everyone see that Saul was truly a follower of Jesus. Soon Saul began preaching about Jesus in Jerusalem. Then he traveled far and wide, teaching people in many different countries about God's Son, Jesus. So, what was the name of the guy in our story? Raise your hand if you know his name. Well, we know you know his name because you were him. All right. Rosalie, what was his name? Saul. Come here, Rosalie. Here's a download for you off our VBS music. Do you want me to bring it to you? What are you laughing for? Christians laugh. What are you guys doing? Did they say something funny? Okay. So Saul is the name of the guy. He is a bad man or a good man? He's a bad man. He's a bad man. Here, have one of these to take to Ukraine. He is a bad man. He hates Christians. He doesn't want anybody to believe in Jesus. So he persecutes and kills Christians and puts them into jail. And so he does these horrible things, but he's headed to Damascus to look for Christians to put in jail. And on his way, he sees a blinding balloon. Is that what he saw? What did he have? What did he see? Kellen. A blinding light. Who helped Kellen? Don't help Kellen. A blinding light. And that light did what to him, Kellen? It blinded him, right? Yes. He couldn't see anymore. Come here and get this. Here's a download for you. So he couldn't see anymore because he was now blind. And his friends took him to Damascus, and he was sitting in this house for 3 days praying and hoping that because God said somebody would come to help you. And you can't see. Imagine how, it might have been a little scary. So he's waiting for friends to come help him, for this man to come and pray for him. And he's there alone, and there's this man who God speaks to. And his name was what? Raise your hand if you know his name. Raise your hand if you know his name. Raise your hand if you know his name. I see your hand is raised, but don't tell me the answer yet. So Nancy, what was his name? Ananias. Here, Luke, give this to your grandma, great-grandma. And Ananias was a really brave guy. He was saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Is that what he was saying? Yeah. You think he was saying that at first? No. What does it say? He was afraid because he thought that he would get killed, right? But that Saul would put him in prison and kill him. But God said to Ananias, no, don't you worry. I'm going to use this man for my kingdom. And so Ananias goes. Who said his name was? Oh, you said his name was Ananias. So Ananias goes to the house where Saul is. And what does he do for him, McKenna? What did he do for Saul when he went to the house? Do you remember? He prayed. He prayed for him, and then what happened to him? He could see again. McKenna, come get your present. Your brother has a download, so I'll give you something else. Here, you can have candy, or you can pick something out of the basket. He'd rather have the candy. You can trade with him. Do you want your own download? Because he won't share with you.
Oh, he will.
He will share with you. You're sure? You can have more than, you can have 2 pieces because they're little. But don't give him one. Okay. And so he got his prize already. So Ananias prays for Saul, and it says the Bible says the scales fell off of his eyes. Kind of odd, but little scales fell off his eyes, and he could see. And then he went and he got baptized, and he met all the disciples who were Christians, and he became one of them. And I'm sure that they were all looking at him and thinking, is this real or is this a fake? But then they saw that it was real. And then the people who were on Saul's side, who used to be Saul's friends, they hated him now because he was not persecuting Christians. So they made a plan to kill him. But what did the disciples do? Anybody know? What did they do? Somebody who hasn't answered. Harper, what did they do? They made right. So they put him in a what? Do you remember that part of the story? They put him in a basket, and there it is, and they lowered him down the city wall so he could escape. So come get a prize. Harper, come get a prize. You don't want to download, right? Because you already have it. Okay. So you can have something out of there or something out of here. You can have 2 candies. So they lowered him out of down the basket. He went on to Jerusalem, and people were afraid of him there too, but then they soon realized that he really was a Christian. But the story is about Saul, who is the same as Paul, but in Hebrew it's Saul, and in Greek it's Paul. It's the same guy. And but the story is about Ananias too, that Ananias had to do something hard. How many of you have had to do hard things in your lives? Really hard things. And he was afraid. He was afraid. And it's okay to be afraid, guys, because we're human beings. We will be afraid. But what does the Bible tell us? That what time I am afraid, I can trust in you. So anytime you feel afraid, what should you do? Call on Jesus and say, Jesus, help me. I'm afraid. If a dog is chasing you down and is going to bite you, what do you think you should do besides run? Huh? Well, I don't know if you're not supposed to run, are you? You're supposed to stand your ground, right? Who knows what to do if a dog's chasing you? Pray? Well, that's good. That's true. Has Winston ever chased you? No. Okay, that's really good to know. What should you do? What are the rules, Elizabeth, for if a dog was chasing you? So what would you do to scare him? Scream at him? Yell at him? Oh, so you'd have to growl at him maybe, or look. Yes? Okay, so who wants to demonstrate this? Who wants to demonstrate this? Rich, come on, get up here and demonstrate it for us. So there's a dog chasing you. Crew, you're the dog. Get over there. He's got energy. You're the dog. Okay, pretend you're going to bite him.
No.
You stand your ground and you say no as loud and as growly as you can and startle the dog, scare the dog. So none of us are going to be running away from a dog now. The first thing you want to do is run, but inside your mind you could be saying, Jesus, help me. No, and scare the dog. So, okay, that's a good life skill we just learned. So Ananias was afraid. He was afraid, but he obeyed God. And when you are afraid because you have to do something that's hard, maybe school is hard, maybe somebody's doing something to you that you can't go through, that's hard, when you are sick and you have to go to the hospital, or whatever it is, when it's okay to feel afraid, but what do we do with that fear? We call on the Lord. And we say, what time I am afraid, Lord, I'm going to call on you, Jesus. I'm going to trust in you. And we also know from Philippians 4:13 that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We need to remember that. We can do anything through Jesus today. All right, so we're doing good on time. We're going to sing some more songs from one of our old DVDs from VBS. So we're going to do that.